Tawazani Gogo na Bomkulu, I said from 12 o'clock, and I know it's not exactly 12 on the dot. Josie had its other plans. We all know that we are preparing for this lockdown 21 days. So I also had to make sure that I prepare and I set things up at the Institute before I do the stream so that some of my ducks are actually on the roll. So I'm really excited about today. It's Truth Tuesday. So as always, I would say some hard things from what I've learned and what I've experienced as a Sangoma. And remember that Gogo Dineo's motivation are purely based on her experiences, are purely based on what she's encountered and what she's able to understand and perceive, and therefore she shares with you. And I speak as a second person sometimes because I also understand that some of this information, some of these teachings are not my teachings alone. They belong to divine intelligence. They belong to source, which is connected to my ancestors. So some of the things when I listen to myself teach, I'm like, wow, that's new for me, and that's a new learning, and that's a new insight, because I'm always learning and I'm always changing and I'm always evolving, because one, to be a great master needs to always understand that to be a mastery of something, you always need to be learning and crafting and shifting and changing things. So yeah, you know, with this 21 days lockdown, I've noticed that for the first time, I can hear babies cry. Babies are upstairs, baby are around the corner, they're playing everywhere because now we have to be locked down. And it's important because this morning I was actually on the morning show on ETV, and I was asked about coronavirus, and I gave a very short insight. And the reason I was asked about coronavirus was that so Gogo, we are hearing utabala bendabugo, meaning people like me are saying and they claim to have a cure. Whether that's accurate or not, because I haven't encountered us saying that we have a cure. But what I'm understanding for myself as a healer and where I'm standing, when we are at disease, when we have a disease, it means that something is not at ease. And this is a global pandemic. I'm understanding globally something is not at ease, hence a disease has come forward. And as a healer, I'm sitting with all of this. I'm noticing, I'm observing, I'm reflecting, I'm trying to deeply understand what is it that spirit is trying to show us. What is it abokoko na bomkulu? Those who've lived before us are trying to teach us. So I'm reading before I can before I can say this is an in-depth. And I said maybe 6 months later from now, I would have understood and a teaching might emerge that can actually help us move forward, that we don't repeat the same diseases, because we all understand that the universe and spirit brings us the same experience, you know, until we learn the lesson we need to learn, so we can change our behavior, we can change our way of being, in aiding us, in aiding those that we are connected to, including the planet itself. But for now, I can also understand that there's something with Mother Earth, which is a natural, which is our life giver, that she is also trying to articulate by creating or allowing, let me say, by allowing things to be that the way they are. But we also understand that when diseases come, they come with some hardship, they come with some sad realities, because there's a lot of people where this 21 days is going to have a hugely negative impact on. There's a lot of people who are going to go without income. So it is inviting us, some of us who are sitting in positions that are able to do certain things, of how do I restore umuntu ngumuntu ngabantu? How do I restore ubuntu in my small acts of kindness? How can I then show up for those who are in need? But it's also saying to those who are in need to start distilling and deciphering, to say what is a need and what is a want, because some of us, we have come into a generation of entitlement, that what we cannot differentiate between what is needed and what is wanted, that we just believe that it is expected of the other because we are in what we perceive as a need for them to gift, but actually what we are asking for, it's not a need. So I'm just saying that this is a time for us to deeply interrogate, because I feel that it is it's a provocation for the whole global consciousness. It's not only for Africans, but for Africans, I think it is also teaching us some things. You know, it's asking us, what we as a continent have we neglected? What we as a continent have we forgotten? And what we as a continent do we need to return back to? That what are the things that we have thought that no longer serve us? That actually along the path of discarding certain things, we have lost ourselves, and we've lost ways and pathways that can actually be aiders in the crisis that we're currently facing. And I'm saying to us as Africans as well, and especially as African spiritual healers, that what is it asking us in terms of how we language things and how we articulate and express truths from our own experiences of what we are able and capable of doing and what are our limitations. So we understand that we do have medicinal plants that are anti-inflammatory, that are antibacterial, that are antifungal, that can really aid what we call biological elements such as corona. But we also understand that our gift is to understand things beyond the biological symptoms in which coronavirus is manifesting, is that we understand that spiritual discourses. So maybe this is asking us to go into a time of retreat, asking us to dig deep and ask the ancestors, where have we missed the mark as the human race, and where have we missed the mark as a black race in the continent, where we understand that if we are the Garden of Eden because we are the heartbeat of the continent, because we are situated geographically right into the center. So what is the center that Africans need to return to, and what are the solutions that the world are seeking that might be in our hands? These are the questions I'm asking. I don't have answers, and I don't have an answer to corona, and I don't have the solutions. I can also go with what has been prescribed, but I can also apply things that I know for me have served me in times of crisis. I understand the importance of umpepo, just not as an incense, as such as to phahla. I understand because it's got medicinal properties and what it does. I understand, I've learned to understand, which some people say heat does kill the virus, and now I start to understand the significance of food. When you meaning that you're actually elevating certain medicinal properties to aid yourself in a crisis. But I'm also understanding that this might be a time to connect, retreat, and commune, not only with amadlozi, but also to the ones who are closest to us, because we live in a time and an era where business is a norm and where being busy is seen as productive. But something is asking us to slow down, because in our fast-pacedness, we are consumed by a lot of things, and we tend to really forget who we are. So I'm asking all those questions, and I don't have the answer. So I wanted to begin the stream by just speaking about those things and just saying, take this time to reflect. I'm just hoping for myself and for the rest of us that after the 21 days lockdown, after we've overcome, because I truly and strongly believe that we're gonna overcome this, that we come out of this with much greater wisdom, with much greater enlightenment, that some of the things that we have done and that we do and we think they're usual and business as usual, we could shift and understand that in my behavior, in my actions, in my interactions, how am I impacting the other, and by impacting the other, that it comes back to me, because what you plant, what you sow, you shall reap. And to understand our interconnectedness and not our separation, because that's what corona is also teaching us, because it is one virus that actually anyone can get it. I like certain things that had racial demographics, had this and that, but this one just says that if you find yourself in an area, if you breathe this is what you're gonna get. And I understand that some people who says people with melanin have a stronger immunity to contract the illness. But I'm also saying, let not in our arrogance be also put our lives in danger. Let's not risk certain things. And yeah, and today I've got my cameraman. Like I said, I'm going to be doing streams of things, so I just wanted to do the corona thing. So the cameraman keeps on pressing things. I don't know what he's pressing or what's going down, but are we good, cameraman? We're good. We're still on the roll. And I said, hey, okay, so maybe with my cameraman we'll do a stream together, who knows, so that when you're in lockdown you can actually be binging on Gogo Dineo's motivation. I posted and said I wanted to speak about being a healer or being gifted and having to navigate family responsibilities, because from what I have learned in the 10 years that I've been a Sangoma, and in the other years that led me to taking up my calling, how my family, intended so and unintended so, have been hugely impacted by me being a healer. What I have learned is that when I actually took upon the calling, they also took upon the calling. When I experienced symptoms of that I needed to hit the call, so what I was experiencing, the sufferings and the struggles that I was experiencing, they were being impacted because we are so interconnected. I always say to some people that sometimes you go and see a healer, and how we see things and how we articulate things, because language is very important. You find that somebody says your mother is a witch, but what makes your mother a witch, what could make your mother a witch, is actually that your mother is a witch because your mother failed to honor what she was called to do. So in her failing to honor that it has failed you guys as a family. So understanding that when you are being gifted with this gift, it is not a burden. You are actually being entrusted to take your family from one goalpost to another. You are called to be a catalyst. You are called to be a transformer for the family. And understand that in order for you to do that, it is incremental and crucial for you to have family support. But does that mean that because your family does not believe, therefore you can't honor it? You are also doing what your own mother, your own father failed to do. Because we need to understand as well, Uguti, because of religion, we sometimes get at loggerheads when it comes to African spirituality and the gifts and Ubungoma and the calling. Because of historical dispositioning, we come at loggerheads. And some of the things I'm going to say, I've said it before, but sometimes we need to reiterate and emphasize certain things until it becomes a way of thinking and a way of being. Because I have spoken before about why families might find it difficult for them to come on board, to support you on your calling, because you are a mirror of what they ran away from. So by you owning up to the mirror, it means you are magnifying that mirror to them and say, what in which you have failed to honor, it's what I am willing to honor. It's taking an act of courage and honoring it on your behalf, but on the behalf of your whole lineage, because that's what being called is about. It's saying to the whole family that what in which you have failed to do besides the calling of being a healer. I'm talking about ritual practices. I'm talking about amasiko. I am putting myself on the lifeline, and I'm taking an act of courage to restore us back to the essence of who we are, so we can be deeply rooted and our ability to thrive in a family can happen. But also understand, Guti, in the acts of bravery and heroism, there comes a lot of sacrifices. And one I've alluded to, that it could be that you do lose the very same people whom you are attempting to help and aid. But understand that irrespective, you are doing for those who come after you, whether those be your children, your cousins, your relatives. So you're not only doing it for yourself and those who failed, but you're doing for those who are coming. So it's taking that and understand that you do. And in those sacrifices, also understand that those who might be supporting you, who might be your immediate at the time. So for me now, it was my family, it was my mother, it was my partner at the time, it was my kids. But they took a huge toll because it meant I was away from home for about a year, and they can only see me in a particular time. But I understood that to be a mother and to be present and functional, I needed to get myself right, because when I'm right and well within self, I am able to perform and be present and be functional as a parent. And yes, those times that I was away, my kids took a toll. They took even a further toll, because when I came back, I had to be invested in my work, because being a Sangoma is kind of like being an emergency service 24/7, because I understand to go to Siavala, even though we can have official closing hours. But you understand, for those of us who are not only Sangomas practicing healing, but some of us who are Gobelas, what it means, because it's better the status function all the time. And what I've learned about those things and understanding how much work is asked of me to become a healer, because you're not only asking the spiritual me to step in, you're asking the psychological me, you're asking the emotional me, you're asking all of me to fully show up so I can be a facilitator of healing to you. So my family is going to suffer. My family is going to experience what I am giving to others as a shorting what I'm supposed to be giving to them. So therefore, it is my responsibility as a member of a family to also start making time and dedicate responsibility in taking care of those that are my priority as well. It is a trial and error situation. I learned it first before I became a Kobela Mengu when my hours were crazy, and I also at the time had a full-time job in a corporate sector. So it meant that I had multiple things that I needed to juggle, and I had my kids to take care of. I had a family to take care of. I had a responsibility as a mother, and I understood that if I don't make the time for my children, they will never get my time. And I understood that they were giving so much of themselves for a mother to head the calling, even though it is of benefit to them, but mother still had to be mother. I will continue in this because I'm still in the flow. So, you know, I still had to do those things. So it meant that I had to sometimes say no to patients. I had to say no to the people that I'm training and say, I am making this time, I'm dedicating half of this day to be with my kids in the park. I'm dedicating an hour of this time to do homework. And I am seeing that even with such, it was not easy, that I had to start to separate my work and my personal, because this work, for those who are in it, and you can validate those who are working and have to take care of families, how much of this work is asking of you, because by the time you're done in Dumbeni, you are also depleted. But understand, Guti, as much as we want to play heroes, understand that the heroes that lead us are the ones who are immediate and who are here with us. But also understand the pains that come with it, the inability to perform healing through the methods and mediums in which you've been trained for your family. But inyanga is nyangi. What does that say mean when they say healer doesn't heal? It's not that you are not capable. It does not mean you don't have the skills. It means because as a healer, you need to fully show up and fully be present when you're facilitating healing, because spiritual healing requires all of you. It does not want your cognitive understanding of imbiza, sebenza kanjani. Wants you to tune in. If this is how I understand imbiza, this is what I understand imbiza ye-post surgery, kunomhlabelo, kunomathunga, but idlozi ngabe yathi faka nenguduza. So if I'm emotionally attached to the people, sometimes my objectivity gets blurred, because I'm the subject matter of what is going on with my loved one. It means that as a healer, you also become okay for your family to go seek second or third opinion. So I'm just saying these things for you to understand how can you be aided to be functioning with all these multiple demands and requests that come from family responsibilities. But to parents, to a lot of people, I think I swallowed something, or something came in my mouth. It is important for you to dedicate time. And it's not balanced because it's a dance. You know, it's one foot forward, one foot back. There's no balance. There's the other one. So you will find that sometimes you'll do too much of something and you need to go back. Sometimes you'll do too much of something and you need to go back. If you don't make time, there'll never be time. Because it's about you understanding what your children, your family is also important. There's family funerals, there's family things. I understand that sometimes I don't attend the actual funeral service, but I'll make sure that I show up that week. You know, I'll make sure, because sometimes it's not that I can't go. It's just that because I'm an energy sponge, when I get into funerals, I take on a lot of energy that are not going to serve even the people I'm trying to be there for at the funeral, or the person who I'm trying to pay my last respects to. So you have to be distilling and decipher, but you still need to be able to show up. So you can't use your gift as an excuse not to be able to take care of your loved ones, not to be able to gift of your loved ones. People always ask me, Gogo, how do you do it? There's no magic pill. It's about understanding priorities and understanding that everything that you're doing, it is important because you're interconnected to that system. But you cannot stop as well from hitting your calling because now your family doesn't believe in it. Because you might have to lead by example. You might be the one who has to take the courageous and bold acts. And if indeed your people want it to be so, they will make ways in which things happen without immediate family support. But don't do it just because you feel it's a sense of agency or it's an emergency. And this, sometimes your family is saying no because you are going to be missing marks by forcing to do it, because where you're supposed to be going is not the place that they want you to be in. There's a lot of things. That's why I said what Corona teaches me is that it is time to be still. It is time to reflect. It is time to observe and notice and start to see things that we're not seeing. So I spoke about that. I spoke about Corona. I spoke about family. I said I'm going to do a series of different topics. What I want to speak about next is the whole thing about Christianity and African spirituality. It's a whole thing about, Gogo, how do I differentiate between Ubungoma and Prophet? My understanding is Gogo Dineo, and some of it is based on historical facts. The first fact that I tend to understand is that Christianity is an adaptation of Kemetic texts. So Kemetic texts being ancient Egypt, that certain stories have been adapted from the Book of the Dead. Go Google it and see if you can find something there, because somewhere in Google, these information and some truths do emerge, even though we understand Google has got its own limitations, and also who is the custodian of Google. But there's some truths that you can discover. So understand that historically, and understand as well that why as South Africans, because I cannot speak about the whole continent, what I can speak of the whole continent and why we moved from indigenous practices is because when we got colonized, our ways of being, our rituals were demonized. That's a fact. Religion was used to move us away from the essence of who we are, so that our identity can be remolded and reshaped and re-identified by those whom we needed to be enslaved by, so we can be obedient to our masters. So religion comes with also its own negative and toxic implications on the identity of Africans. Do you stop being religious now you know this truth? No, it's about how do you use that same religion to deconstruct images of God that does not resonate and speak to who you are. Because my understanding of God is energy. It's energy that we're connected to. It's energy that does not have a physical entity nor agenda. That's what we need to use to deconstruct. We need to understand that in South Africa, in 1965, an act was passed called the Witchcraft Regulation Act that regulated and criminalized practicing Ubungoma. So that's where the emerging and the growth of prophetic churches came to be. Because the gift did not stop nor stall, it was still present, but we had to be innovative, hence Ubuprofeta. Because Ubunyang, Ubungo, and Uprophesy, they come from one tree, just different branches. So Mokuba Ugogo, who's wearing izambatho zesonto, ofaki piga, capes, church uniform, and you're thinking that that's all, that Gogo is ithosi, agaseko, and wants you to continue their work by honoring them in what they used to do and use. But it does not make that Gogo not ethos. Because a difference between ancestor and angels is ancestors once had a human experience. They had a physical body. Maldome Some says that they have the know-it-all, because remember they've departed from the physical body. They are one with source. So they have the know-it-all, but they don't have the body. Hence, abayihlozi but ungeno umoya. So that spirit in which has come to you now wants to work through you. Whether it's ukoko wesonto or ukoko begafaka mabai nobuhlanga. So churches of prophecy were an innovative way of still practicing African healing without them being criminalized, without them being jailed for those things. Don't think which the other is better than the other. It's one coin, just different sides of the coin. Because that's what I know about us Africans. When we're faced with the dilemma, we know how to innovate. For example, when you come into a home and a woman is barren, they would not be labeling you the things that we now have come to use as common terms called unyopa and stuff. They will still want that family to expand. That's why a woman will say, let's invite another person into this family, but not just the family saying we are expecting. I would love for us to have, because it would benefit this family for us to have children because of this and this and this. Is that the case now? I don't know, because your need and my needs are different. But it's to understand why things shifted and once things changed. Because to consult a Sangoma, to be one, was criminal. And those images were demonized. My own first encounter and seeing of a Sangoma on TV was that woman on the Shaka Zulu movie who looked eerie, freaky, and scary. And Batum Tagat. So it's for us to understand those things. Uguti, you're still dealing with ethos even though they're asking you. It is one coin, different sides. Inyanga ilapa with plants, medicinal plants, animal fats, etc. Who created those things? Creator, God. Umprofitula pangani, ngamanzi. Who created those things? God. So we both are working with source in order for us to facilitate healing. So when you sing those things, it could mean Tina, we are messengers of healing. We are messengers of light as healers. Because we have been entrusted with those gifts. So there is no way where you could say the other is better, or I want this or that one. Because the Gogo who is showing up might be the front person saying, because right now you are a believer of this, let's work with you through the medium in which is Christianity, but we're going to ask you and want you to still honor la makehla. We're still going to want you to honor la Ubungoma. And I say, because I have learned in the institute we do both. And I understood the reason it becoming both right now is about learning to dance and balance, because it's about honoring. When you do into Estunya, we are honora in order for you to be in alignment. If we are Ubungoma, we are honora so that you can be in alignment. That's why it's that way. Because sometimes you see a man's, you see water, you see the oceans. Even prophets or prophetesses would use water. Even sangomas use water. You'd see white. White nomda uyambala izinto white. Even abokoko basesontweni. Because that's where the Kereketa spirit come from. Because we know that historically those churches were actually spaces, because things would happen at 3 o'clock. They would call them witchcraft because magic ancestral power was at its potency at the time, because it was a space that was sacred, that protected us from being criminalized, that protected us from being persecuted by the state at the time, but we could still share skupus vusabangoma in sacred, secret spaces. That's where Kereketa spirit comes from, because they were red. Bangoma were red. So we had to be innovative. Let us understand before we label and name our things evil. Where is the paradigm coming from? Where did we create that thinking? Because a lot of our thinking is very colonial. And I say a lot of our thinking because I am included in that. I continuously have to challenge my thinking. I continuously have to change and shift my paradigm to deeply understand the essence of our practices. So as I am doing the work that I'm doing, I am not perpetuating stereotypes in my attempt to challenge stereotypes. I am a student of life, and my ancestors have called me to be a teacher. In order for me to learn how to teach, I need to learn how to learn and be a student. So I hope you've understood the difference between that. They're not actually different. It's one thing, just different expressions, different forms. Like the sun is one, but Europe would get a different type of sun. Different rays that beam that side are not as strong as the rays that beam in Africa, because Africans require a different thing. So you can't say, no, Mina, my calling, I choose to take it that way. You have been called to be in honor of what they have seen that you could utilize as a tool. And I'm seeing that they are asking us to understand African truths when it comes to practicing. They are helping us to understand God, even in that Bible, in the Quran, and in the Torah, from an African context. That's why they're still wanting us to do the things that we do in religious segments, so that we can understand deeply, what does this narrative mean? What does this thing mean? Where does the cross come from? It is an adaptation of the ankh. I resonate with the ankh because for me, historically, a cross was used as a form of punishment. Criminals, Jesus at the time of persecution, he was seen as a criminal because he went against the Roman Empire. He was seen as a criminal because he claimed things that looked as ridiculous. So for me to speak to that cross that was used as a form of punishment, there's no resonance, but there is when it comes to the ankh, because it speaks to the essence of African systems, which is about families, communities, and unionship, because the ankh, it's both feminine and masculine energies coming together, therefore giving birth to life. It is how the womb is shaped. It is saying the masculine and the feminine. It is saying the man and the woman, and not only just by gender, but by spirit coming together, it gives us life. So for me, an ankh represents life. So when I use in my garments this prophet or an ankh, it's because that's what it's speaking to. And I'm not here to change and say don't honor those things, because it's to understand why have my ancestors took me from being a born-again Christian to being a non-believer to being Ubungoma, from Ubungoma to go back to Christianity and see where is the integration, or where do the two worlds speak to each other. So in me speaking about that, then there could be liberation. Therefore, our people can be mentally emancipated from colonial ways of thinking and understanding of things, because in order for us to move into one human race, we need to readdress injustices of the past that have made one race superior over the other. We need to be able to dismantle ideologies and philosophies that have made one thing superior. We need to dismantle the identity of a white God, because it says to us that we are only holy and worthy if everything that we do, it is whiteness attached. And that's not true, because God is spirit, God is energy, God has no gender, God is for all of us. So if God is for all of us, it means that God has also created pathways in which we can connect to that energy based on the context, based on our cultural backgrounds, based on what source sees best fits us to connect to that creator energy. Because this environment, Africa, requires us to Shisimpepo, because that's an indigenous plant of this continent of Southern Africa. There's a lot that I can speak about. I hope you found some insight. I hope you found some information. Love and light. Give thanks, shout outs, and let's see, maybe we'll do another stream later on another topic. Towards that.